Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 12th iteration of the CEF eArchiving Building Block webinar series. My name is Pavel Stech, and I am from the CEF Stakeholder Management Office. Thank you for being extremely patient. We ran into a little bit of technical difficulties, but I think we are back on track. Instructions for this live webinar, as you can see, this session is going to be a little bit different. This is an interactive session. There will be a time for questions and answers throughout the presentation via Slido. We decided to change the setup a little bit, change up the setup a little bit. I hope this creates a better environment for our viewers and listeners. We hope that you will share your views through the Slido app, and we will constantly be monitoring it. Please note that this webinar will be recorded, and the recording will be available shortly after this session is complete. On to the agenda. Right now we have the welcome and the agenda. Tom couldn't be with us right now. And the next speaker, the next presenter is Dr. Jamie Kaminsky, the eArchiving Building Block Training Lead. He will be doing the eArchiving Building Block Welcome. And our next speaker after that is Karen Brandenburg from the Kommunalförbundet CITS. I hope I said that correctly. And she'll be presenting eArchiving, putting the CITS content in the CSIP package, the main reason you're all here. And after that, we have the Q&A, where we will focus on the question and answers that you all provide through the Slido app. And now I will give the stage to Dr. Jamie Kaminsky. There he is.
Thank you, Pavel. Can you hear me and see my slides?
Yes, we do.
Excellent. Okay, right. Well, as Pavel's mentioned, I'm the head of training at the eArchiving Building Block, and I'd like to welcome you to the 12th of our training webinars. So as Pavel mentioned, today we're going to be looking at putting the CITS content in the CSIP package. And to do this, we have Karen Brandenburg. She's back again to give us an insight into METS, the Metadata Encoding and Transmission Standard, and how it's used to create a package that adheres to CSIP. This will be followed by a look at the different ways that standards are used to create a CITS. Now, before we do that, I usually say a few words about the background and ethos of the building block, just to get everybody up to speed. And we do have some new delegates today, so I will launch into that. The building block, the eArchiving building block, was created in late 2018, and its aim is to provide specifications, software, training, and knowledge to help people preserve and reuse information over the long term. Now, all of this information can be found on the building block website, which you can see a screenshot of. And I will provide a link to this in the chat function after I have finished. In terms of what we do, well, as you would expect, we provide a variety of eArchiving services. One of the things we do is maintain technical specifications, and that's very much Karin's area of the building block. In our case, the core specification is the Common Specification for Information Packages, or CSIP, and you'll hear a lot more about that later. We also have open source tools that you can download and use right away. We have compliance and validation services that ensures that these specifications are followed. We've also got a service desk, and again, I'll provide a link to that in the chat box later. We have outreach and community engagement activities. And of course, we are developing a training offering, of which this is a part. And we'll be delivering webinars like this, providing videos, modules on the Moodle platform, amongst other things. Obviously, the face-to-face training is unlikely to occur this year due to the pandemic. Now, very quickly, I'll just give you a brief overview of the remaining webinars for this year, well, certainly up until the end of October. So as you probably know by now, our webinars, they begin at 10 CET or CEST, depending on the time of year. The next webinar will be run and led by Bjorn Skog from ES Solutions, who's going to talk about the practical applications of digital archiving. And this is a two-part webinar. So the first part will be on the 10th, and the second part will be on the 24th of June. Then we're going to have a well-deserved summer break, after which we will return with 3 webinars. The first on the eArchiving reference architecture, the next on validation, and then finally in October, eArchiving geospatial data. So there is a lot to look forward to over the coming months. Now, as Pavel said, the webinars are recorded and they'll be made available on the eArchiving webinar webpage, which you can see here. Now, the page is going to be revamped in the coming months, so it might look a little bit different. It's certainly going to change. Yeah, what you see will change, but the essence of what's there will remain. So you will have access to a PDF of the slide deck. You'll have access to a recording of the webinar itself, and you'll also have access to a transcription of the Q&A that occurred during the webinar. So if you ask a question today, it'll be transcribed and anonymized and made available for the community. Another place you can find our webinar recordings is the CEF Digital YouTube channel. And I really rave about this. I always talk about this because I think this is a great site. It's got loads of contents that not just from the eArchiving building block, but all the building blocks. And also a lot of the other work that CEF Digital does. So it's really worth having a look at if you've not done so already. In terms of our webinars, they're part of a broader outreach program. So we've got activities such as workshops and presentations at conferences when they are actually happening. In terms of communications, we've got a LinkedIn group. You can see the details on screen, and also a Twitter handle as well. And again, I'll provide all of this in the chat later. And finally, it's my great pleasure to introduce our next, well, our speaker for today. As I said earlier, this is Karin Bradenberg, who's the metadata strategist at CITS, a Swedish municipality organization. She's also the chair of Premise EC, the co-chair of TSEAS, the chair of the DILSIS board, as well as being a member of the METS board. She's also the activity lead for specifications in the eArchiving building block. And today, as I said earlier, she's going to be talking about putting the Content Information Type Specification content in the CSIP package. So, Karin, over to you.
Thank you, Jamie. So, yeah. As you heard, I'm working with a lot of the metadata standards, and I will give you an introduction to some of them and really try to explain how it all fits together. So, it's not winter in Sweden currently. As you can see in the image, it's from Millesgården, one of our great artists we have had here in Sweden. No snow, but rain. So let's go into the nitty-gritty of eArchiving. So what I'm really talking about and going to talk about is the chaos. We have a chaos. We have files of all different kinds of types, and somehow we want to have them ordered, and we want to have that black box, which gives us what we have on the right, a package with information inside of it. So we want to have the CSIP being the package, and into that one we want to have information ordered following as CITS, the Content Information Type Specification. That's really what we are talking about today. When we have the order in the chaos, it's possible to transfer. Even if I know we also have to transfer the chaos sometimes, depending on where we are, how old the material is, and so on. But the thing is that we have a citizen contacting an agency, or in my cases, one of my municipalities, and they actually submit information that is stored in, for example, a records management system. That information in its turn needs to be transferred to other agencies. It might need to be published online, depending on GDPR and all those kind of things, but some of the information we have actually are published online. And then we also need to be able to put it into the archive, have it moving to the archive, and then it all starts again, because when the information is in the archive, of course, it needs to be able to hand it out to a researcher or the citizen itself. So it's a constant move of information, and we need to do that in a more proper way than chaos. We order the chaos with the help of the UIS reference model. On the left, you have the really proper image of it. I usually talk about the top right image, which makes it easier to explain for everybody what we are doing. I'm going grocery shopping. I put that in a bag. That's my CSIP, my information package. I can store that in my fridge. That's my archive. And when I put it in the archive, I can do it in a number of different ways. I can either just put the bag in as it is, or I can sort it according to what it is. And then I have a researcher. Well, in my case, it's someone who are going to have a dinner with me. So I can either have been so prepared when I created my archive information package that I have in the fridge, that my dissemination information package is just to pick out, and I can create the perfect meal of småländska isterband. You have to Google that one. It's a dish from where my head office is placed. I don't think you have eaten it, but it's really nice. Or I can pick parts and pieces of different archival information package to create my meal. So that's really what we're doing. We are just grocery shopping and having a lot of stores to choose from. So that's the basic. That's where we're starting off. To order the chaos, we are using specifications. And you have a number of links, and as said before, you will have access to the presentation and all the links afterwards, because it's a lot of links that we have to handle. So when we look at the specifications, they are the basic setup, the common denominators for both the information package and the content information type specification. And we are using standards. We are not inventing something new. And when we look at the standards, there are a lot of them. This image is an image I've been showing for a number of years now, but it really shows the diversity of standards that are existing. So you have these two wheels where the standards are ordered according to what they are used for. So on the right, you have the function of them. Then on the left, you have their domain. And you might be able to see the spiders on top, which also connects the standard to which of its colorful pieces it belongs to. So as I said, I've been using this image for a while. That means it doesn't have all the standards, because there comes new standards the whole time that are being used for describing the information we have here in the world. So really, it's a lot of things to look at. And the common, even more common denominators is that we are currently using, for our specifications in the eArchiving building block, extensible markup language, or XML. Of course, we are open for XML, perhaps not being the language in a couple of years, but so far, and what I've also heard being to XML conferences, is that XML is here to stay. It's being used in more and more places, and it's really, everybody knows what it is. And if you do it correctly, we can read it with our own eyes. We just need a text editor to be able to see, but that also brings some responsibilities on the people creating these different formats that we are using. So not being too strange named things, but making sure that we can really, really understand and see what's going on. Currently in the building block, we are using a number of standards. The core one is being METS, the Metadata Encoding and Transmission Standard. And in just a couple of slides, I will give you a crash course in METS. And I will say it's a crash course because it takes some time to get used to it, but you will get a high overview of the standard, so you understand what I'm saying in the rest of the presentation. And for each content information type specification that we add, more standards will come. And that is something that is natural, because you can't use just one standard to describe all the information we have. So it's always looking at what standard is it that you should use for this type of information. That's what you need to think about. So we don't use a standard for what it's not describing. So as I've already said, and living in acronym land, we have the information package specifications, abbreviated CS, and we have the content information type specifications, the CITS. So the information package, that's the overall building thing. It's my shopping bag, my grocery bag. So on the top, we have the CSIP, which is the common things for all information packages. And as you already heard, I have my package coming in, being the submission information package. I store it as the archival information package, and I disseminate it through the dissemination information package. And all of these have some small changes needed to be the best for its purpose. But all the common things are in the CSIP. And then we have the content information type specifications. And when we started off, we had 3 of them: one for digital geospatial data records, one for electronic records management systems, and one for relational databases. And that was the starting point. These 3 describe the content within the package. We need to have that extra, not only the information package. We need to know about the information inside it. Are there rules and requirements put on the content itself? And 3 is not enough. After the last webinar in this series, you will actually see that we will have 8 content information type specifications. So these are growing, and they will continue growing and follow the need from everybody on the content information type specification, and also is depending on the experts of the content information types to actually aid with creating these specifications. So some of them I will continue to talk about, but as you see, it's a lot going on and a lot of more specifications becoming available. Starting off, so we are on the same page of reading a specification. It's a text with rules. It's as simple as that. Some would say it's not simple, but that is how we have set it up. So for each specification, you have the specification itself. It contains requirements. So all the demands that are put upon the information. To that, as I said, we were using XML. To XML, you can create XML schema or XML schemas that contains the rules. Upon that, we need to have the pink bunny schematron, which all rules are sadly enough not possible to express in the XML schema. You need to use schematron to make more explicit expressions of the requirements. So you can actually make them depending on other requirements and so on, and do a lot of more checking on that the requirements are being followed. That is the technical part of it. But we also know that you need a guideline. You need something showing you what you are supposed to be doing, and where can I read more about. If I want to read the whole OIS reference model, we don't have that in the guideline. We point you to where can you read about the OIS reference model. And another part is that you need to have examples, preferably more than one, but we start off with one and gather more and more, so you can see the different specifications being used in different settings. So all those gives us a specification. So a specification has connections with other things. When we read the tables for the requirements, you need to have your eye out for some parts here. So we have a column with the IDs. Which requirement are it that you are trying to fulfill? And we have the name, location, and description. Since, as I said, we are using currently XML, it's possible to, with the help of writing XML as readable text, to show where we are actually finding the element. We give them a name, a more human readable name than object ID. What the heck is that? So the package identifier. And we also give a description on the element. We have the cardinality and level, which gives how many times and how you should think about if we have some other things stated. I will say a couple of more things about that in a second. Hidden slightly in the bottom of the slide, you see that we have one example. So we actually show one example for this part and piece. And this is actually then for the CSIP, but it's the same if it's a Content Information Type Specification. So these things are following along. I said I was going to return to cardinality and level, and here you have that. These are the two key terms that you need to be aware of and have in mind. Card is cardinality, and that's, as I said, how many times can an element or attribute occur? As you see here, it says 1.1. That means it's required, and it can only be there one time. There are a number of more for optional elements and so on, and also for repeatable. So keep an eye out for those and learn them. The level is giving, if the attribute or element, since we are mixing here, so we are using attributes and elements within the originating standard. So if it's not mandatory, how should I think? Should I use it or may I use it? So recommendations on how you should think on using it. In most of the cases, it's actually should. But we know also at the same time it's not possible to do that in all settings. We now have our specification. Deep diving into the information package. So we have the package principle and requirements. So that's where the CSIP is a little bit different from the other 3 specifications for IPs. We have principles. So in the principles, we describe, for example, what makes a package, and how do we identify it and its contents. So we have a number of principles, and all of them are explained and using this must, should, may. So those also gives us the information about what is considered to be an information package. What is my grocery shopping bag? Combined with that is we are using the rules and requirements in the CSIP to create a manifest, a descriptions of all the files that we have in this grocery bag. But what if that manifest gets lost? How do we understand the package? That's when we have a folder structure, which is mandatory to use. And it follows along what has been described as what gives you an information package. So we have these different parts of the data, the metadata surrounding the information package, sorted into its folders, so we actually can see if we are totally lost. We can actually understand and connect the things we have in this folder structure with our information package. So this is the part where I'm going into the crash course. So we have the METs, and we use that for all the different packages, the CSIP, CIP, AIP, and DIP. And I'm going to give, as I said, it's a crash course in METs. It takes a couple of hours for the first time to understand it, and then you need to work with it a while for really understanding it and being able to use it. But here we go. So, as I said, the metadata encoding and transmission standard METs is used for the CSIP, and those also for the CIP, AIP, and DIP. It's a standard hosted at the Library of Congress in US. It has a board, as you heard, I was one of the members of the board. So it's an internationally board with members from all over the world. And we host and maintain the whole standard. When we look at the standard itself, it has different parts. And I'm going to go through these different parts, and I'm not, as I said, it's a crash course. So the MET standard has these 7 sections. You have METs being the top element, since we are talking XML here. METs is the top element that gathers all the sections. The first one is the METs header. That's an optional section where you describe the sender and receiver of the information package, and that kind of high-level information regarding most, especially agents, persons, machines that have been in connection with the information in the information package and part of the creation of the information package. The next one is the DMDSEC, the descriptive metadata section, also optional. Here is the section where you can connect to, for example, we are talking eArchiving, so the closest things there is a finding aid or the description of the creator. But since this is a standard that's also used in the library world and in much other different settings, it's possible to point to and use the descriptive metadata that is needed for this kind of information in the sector I'm using it. Then we have the administrative metadata section. Here is the section where we actually get the administrative information. It's in its turn split it up in more sections. Here we deal with the technical information of the files. Here is where we store, for example, premise metadata, so preservation metadata, where we actually gather events that have happened with the objects that we have. We also can have information about the rights. And for rights, there are a number of different standards to use. So administrative metadata that we need to know and gather about the files that we have in this transfer. So the information we actually are transferring. So all these three sections that we have here are to understand and aid with the information we are actually transferring. Then we have the file section, which is, as I usually, it's optional, but it's typical. Here is where we have all the files that are being transferred, the information itself. Then we have the structural map section, and I will go into that a little more on the next slide. That's the only required part of the standard maps. And that's where you can see the structure of the content. And you can also connect the content with the other sections, so with the descriptive metadata and administrative metadata, which also is possible to do in the file section. What you also can use the structural map for is actually to make imaginary connections. So I will talk about a little bit with some more aid from the next slide. If you have used and are transferring a web page, it's possible to describe the web page in the struct map, so setting up how all the different pages are connected. And then you use the structural link section to create the links between the pages that you have on the web page. And then the last section is the behavior section, and the closest things to describe the behavior section is to look at, you remember old times when we started a file from the command prompt, writing, we start the program, we're opening this file and we do this and this with it. That is what you can use the behavior section for. Describe how you're supposed to open a file and connect it. Or I've even seen an example of using the behavior section to how should I connect? I've made scans of a scroll and I need to connect them. So when I'm opening the scroll on screen, it's magically and opens up, which show the whole scroll, and that they have chosen to use the behavior set to do that connection and put all the pieces together. So the structural map, as I said, it's the mandatory and required element in the standard maps. What you have in it is that you have divisions. If you've been working with web pages, these are really familiar to you. So you can have divisions with divisions within them, and you can create the structure you need to describe your content. The most common example of a struct map is describing, I'm scanning a book. I have my front page, I have my table of contents, I have my chapters, and I have all my back side of the book. And I can use the divisions to make all these splittings and create and have the structural map of my whole book just connected and created by the help of using the divisions. I see I have a question from the audience, and I will take that. We will come back to that one because I will be touching these kind of things. When we look at how we are using METs and the structural map in the CSIP, we have not gone for that describing a book part. We are making it rather simple. So we are actually pointing to the different sections that we have. You remember the folder structure I talked about? So in the struct map, we are actually pointing and making sure to these different folders that we have. So we point to the metadata section. We have a division for the documentation. As you remember or are fully aware about, you need, when we get a transfer to an archive especially, we need to have some documentation about the information that are coming. So that is grouped into the documentation. We have one division for the schemas. So when it's XML schemas that are coming, we want the XML schemas to be placed in the schema folder. And you can have one or more schemas, but they should follow along the information. So as I said, what do we do if we don't have anything left? And then we have the representations, which are the different folders for the information and data itself. So that's rather simple and easier than what you can do. But it's possible, as I said, to do more elaborate struct maps. So I'm talking about CSIP, I'm talking about METs, but how do we make them actually shake hands? How do we connect these two? And actually what you have is in METs, when you're using the standard METs, as I said, the only required element was the struct map. What we from the METs board ask you to do when you're using the standards is to create a profile telling how you are using the standard. That has, of course, been made also for the CSIP. We have a METs profile showing how you are using METs. And then we also take the advantage of transformations. So we actually use the METs profile to fill the tables for the CSIP. So bad example I see, really, I've just taken the top of the METs profile, but when you look into the METs profile, which is available through the GitHub repository, you will see that you have a requirement having the name CSIP1, and it contains the text you see on the screen and in the requirement. So that's how we connect the two of them, reusing the METs profile to create the tables. Also gives us the opportunity to, and advantage of not having to write text twice. I hope you have understand and got a clue about METs and the use of METs. Now I'm going to go into and look into the how the different packages are connected. So we have METs and we have the CSIP. We have the eArchiving, AIP, and DIP, and they are, as I said previously, special use cases of the CSIP. The CIP and the DIP extends the CSIP. It tells what makes this information package, besides being a CSIP, what makes it a submission information package or a dissemination information package. There are some attributes added. There are some agents added. So the people who have been handling the information package. And we also have some values that we say this is an SIP. So then actually we have a value saying this is a CIP. When you're looking at the AIP, it's more description of how to handle the package in an electronic archive and actually how to move an AIP from one archive to another. So I'm not going deeply into that one, but the CIP and the DIP extends the CSIP and have its extending METs profiles, which means that it's possible to extend even more. I'm not going to leave the packages totally, connected to the content package. Remember, I talked about the descriptive metadata and the administrative metadata. So for the descriptive metadata, we have a CITS 4 archival information. But since so much work has already been done regarding the different ways of describing a finding aid, there are national ways of describing it. We are just saying and recommending to use a number of different standards. And then I know, and we know, there are a lot of more being around. But so use the one you are using. But if you don't have anything, a good one to look at is the profiles for how you create a finding aid and a description of the creator, and also actually a description of the archival institution within Archives Portal Europe. That also gives you the advantages of being able to transfer information to Europeana. So good way, good, easy. There are tools available to export archival information following the profiles from Archives Portal Europe. At the same time, here in Sweden, there are 2 specifications for describing the finding aid and the creator. In Swedish called FGS arkivredovisning. So that is also possible to use. What's been worked on and being available in draft is the records in context. That is also possible to use. And actually, if that's what you're using, you should use it. And then question marks. We have the libraries, they are using MARC. They are using a lot of other standards for describing the material and so on. So just not simple way, use the things you are usually using. You don't need to implement something, a third or fourth way of describing the creator and the finding aid. Use what you have, because also what I'm not talking about is that I love getting packages. I'm not sure I want to get all the information packages available, so you need to have a submission agreement following along. So there is actually where you need to state the archival information is following these and these profiles. So remember that we need to have a submission agreement as well, even if, as I said, packages are nice. For the administrative metadata, I also mentioned that we can use premise. And premise is actually one of the only standard being around for preservation metadata. Preservation metadata implementation strategies is the full name of it. And here we talk about the objects as being digital objects, and we need to know about them, the file format. We can have information about the software that has been created it. And when it becomes R in the archival storage, we need to think about how do we actually show that it's the same object that someone comes and asks for in a couple of years' time. So connected with the preservation metadata, you have the events, as I said. Have we made migrations? Have something happened? Was it did it been corrupted by a kind of virus or something? So all these events needs to be saved. And all the events usually are found out by an agent. Doing a virus scan triggers and gives you an event. But we also need to know that this agent have the right to do something on the object. So we know that the agent are allowed to do this virus check. So that is information mostly common in the archival information or in the archival system. But I also know, and I would love to see this become information that we actually get when we even go into the submission information package. So we actually have this trace from the beginning. Are present in some cases, but not in all. So, and as you hear It's a standard I like to work a lot with. So it's not as scary as it looks. You just need to look at it and see. In most cases, you are using it without knowing it. So those two, and the premise is also a specification for preservation metadata that we have. Moving over to the information type specifications, the CITS. So there are a number of different ways to see and how we have something being following a CITS. So the goal of a CITS is to describe the information. So how do we do that? First one is endorsement and placement. So there are a specification widely used. That means that we can create a CITS that actually only tells use this specification for this type of information, and when you place it into the information package, you do it like this. The most simplest, easiest thing. And actually, the best parallel, I just talked about the descriptive metadata section and the archival information. There we are actually talking about endorsement of the use of the Archives Portal Europe profiles and national profiles. So that's the easiest one. That's the piece of cake sort of thing. The next one is that we actually give all the requirements for the content. The best example here is we know we have an XML schema describing an information type and all the content, all the elements, all the attributes that are for this information type. We need to put some requirements on it. It might be that we say that you always need to have and now we come into the GDPR, we need to have an identification number of the person who sent this thing to this place. You can give that in the content information type specification. Alongside the telling, we also need to put, when we put it into the information packet, we do it like this. We put it here and we put these description goes here. So that's a second way of creating a content information type specification. The third one is that we actually boil it all together. And we have a system and we have a content information type specification describing, yeah, you do this and this with the material, and out we get this, and we give the description on how all these things are done. Which means I can't really describe what is done because it's so dependent on the information and the system it comes from. But that's the one way of also doing it. So, overview of how the specifications can be created. Looking into different ones of them and following what I just showed. So if we look at the relational databases, there we are describing a relational database using a standard named CR. And here we are using a standard. The standard comes with, thankfully, a lot of tools already. So here the focus is actually placement into the package. We have this information, how do we handle it? Equals an endorsement. That's really similar. If we look at CID itself, it's a standard that has been around for a while. It was originally created by the Swiss Federal Archives. It has been part of different projects, and it's been part of, since 2018, the DILSIS board, who are the maintainers of the specifications in the archiving building block, together with the Swiss Federal Archives, are maintaining the standard. And also since 2018, you can actually find CIARD 2.1 on GitHub. And the latest addition is a CITS CIARD. From the beginning, it was just the standard CIARD, but from now on, we also have with the standard, the CITS CIARD, which actually goes into the placement of the files in the information packages. Looking at CIARD and the aid we get from the tools, we get out the database. We connect with the database and create a CIARD file. The CIARD file is an XML. So what we do is we export all the information from the database to an XML document. That follows along some documentation, and all this goes into an information package. Look into the connections with the CITS. So we have the standard, and then we want to put it into the package. Here's where the Content Information Type Specification for CIARD or preservation or relational databases comes in. We have the CSIP, which is extended by the CIP, which in its turn are extended by two profiles, CIARD for the package, because CIARD can be split up a little bit. So we have two extra METS profiles for CITS CIARD connected with the Pink Bunny schematron, and this also means that we are using the standard METS. So that's one way of how to use the package and actually extend the package and create more requirements that are specific for the information we are transferring. Then we also have the Content Information Type Specification for Electronic Records Management Systems, CITS ERMS. Here we give the requirements for the content. So knowing records management is really complex. It's depending on national regulations as well, which means that we have an XML schema where you can export the information from the records management system and put it into a format that is easily transferred. And what you see here is all the different main elements, and it's focused on the content and having the aggregation and the records. It's also possible to add metadata and files that you need to have following along the records management information. So appendixes, it's possible to create smaller number of own elements if you need to add one specific field that you have in your implementation that is not possible to find in the records management specification. You can add big chunks of information using adding additional XML data, and you can also, if needed, but be cautious, add bin64 data, but then you actually need to be able to get that information back. This means that we have an XML schema for the ERMS, which talks about just about the ERMS information, which is extended with the Pink Bunny, because we have some rules that are depending on each other, and since that is not possible to create in the XML schema, we do that through using schematron. In combination with that, here it's rather simple, since we do know that all the different records management systems are national in some cases, a lot of own specializations to be able to follow the national regulations and so on. Here is quite simple. The export that you have been created and the XML document is just the data that are being transferred. So no more description of how you place it in the information package than just putting it into the data folder with its own subfolders, because what we do have in the records management systems today compared to with the beginning of the records management system is that we have all these attachments, we have files, we have everything that are part of the system, and they can have their own folders, so they are also put into the data. And there are a description of some minor small number of fields that you have in the CSIP and what value they should have. At the same time, when I'm talking about records management, I can tell you that hopefully you will see a link in the chat that there are a survey going on in the building block currently regarding records management to actually find out more of what I just said. What are the different systems that are being around? How are the national regulations and so on? So please reply to that one. It's open for until the 14th of June, but so we can get input on what we are doing there and have more ideas of what to do. Then we have a more specialized sort of content information type specification for eHealth 1. And eHealth 1 is concerned with patient journals for patients who have, sadly enough, deceased. Here we are talking about giving overall requirements for the content and how to place it into a package. Working with eHealth data, I'm most certainly aware, you are aware that what they do have is standards, and a lot of standards and formats. The specification itself is focused on the patient. So the patient is the one having all the different diagnoses and having the scans done and everything. So we connect it through the patient. And as you see, it's a lot of stuff going around when we talk about the patient. Here we do the same as when I was talking about CIAD. We are extending the CSIP and CIP with the eHealth 1 information. And that is actually extended through two different METS profiles, one for the root for the eHealth 1 being the core, setting up the patient, and then the representations. So when we look closer into it, on the left side, you see how we are focusing on the middle. We have a submission, it just has one patient. The patient has one or more cases, and the cases have all the documents and things needed. So here it's actually possible to put in and use all the different formats that are available regarding eHealth. Most certainly, this is not the first eHealth specifications. If you were quick in reading the ones I show, we also have one being focused on the cancer registries and the information that they are sending around. So most certainly, eHealth will, in the final end, have a lot of different specifications depending on the focus for them. But here we are focusing on the patient and the deceased patient and transmission of the patient journals to an archive. And you also have some view of how it's put into the information package. So following the same folder structure and everything, just a little bit more information about the different type of files we have. And we do have the specifications. We do know what we want to put into them. And how do we do that? A good question. And it's kind of having a sorting hat. There are so many ways to get the resulting content and put it into a package. There are different levels of steps you need to take in an institution or actually in one place to actually do this. So until the specifications are really implemented in all the different systems, you might be needing to do a mapping from the export, from the originating system to the export format. There might be for also some export tools that are available, looking at CYARD and looking at work going on with our eHealth One SIP creation tool. So there you can get some help. There are export tools created. There might be the worst case scenarios that you actually need to write this yourself. Fingers crossed that's not too common, but I know it happens. It might be that you actually have an export available in the system, which means that you get an XML document, which then can be transformed to follow a CITS. So that is actually possible. There are package creation tools, for example, Rodain and using ESSArch, and the coming SIP creation tool for eHealth One. So they can create the package for you. You just need to drag your files together. And as I said, what we see in the future is that they are actually built into the systems. So you really come to the point of having to press one button and you actually get what you want to have. So that's all the different ways. And I can assure you there are more ways, but these are the most common ones of doing it. And just a note about ARMS. As I said, it's so different how the systems are built. So the specification gives you a common format to use, and how you actually implement it depends on the records management system you have. So in the future, I know we have had a specification for records management here in Sweden for a couple of years, and that has actually been implemented in some systems. So it's something that will actually happen here as well. You will see the specifications implemented in the systems and followed for creating an export. Jamie in the beginning mentioned validation. So for the CSIP, you actually have a validation tool developed. I was sneaky and took the EC image. It's also possible to use it through ISA Square. It's using the same code and everything behind. It's just a different layout. But here you can actually test your information package and see if it's following CSIP. As simple as that. So what I've been talking about today is the chaos. Having all my files and information in systems, arbitrary systems, obsolete systems, and I need to take them through some sort of black box, preferably not a black box, but a box that we actually know something about, that gives us a package with content. So it gives us a CSIP with the extension of a SIP and the use of a Content Information Type Specification. So that's the goal, getting these neat packages, which we know are going to me and are filled with the content I want. So this is a work we do together. We need to combine and work together as experts to create all these Content Information Type Specifications that are needed. We need to extend the number of content type information specifications. We know we are not limited to the ones I have mentioned. There are different other types of content that also needs to be transferred. So as I said, this will be growing and there will come more specification the further we get to the future or in the future. So please participate, aid. Currently, we have some the specification for cancer registries out on review. Give comment, participate, aid us with making them better, and also suggest new ones. There will be more guidance on that in a couple of months, where we actually have written how you should do if you want to propose to do a Content Information Type Specification. So we are in this together. Sounds like a cliche, but here it's actually, we are in this together. And the thing is that we do create things today, and we want to be able to look at them. And I know this is Swedish, so 200 years later, we have that amazing green-haired, I don't know what he is for a kind of species, saying, was that how it looked? Ha ha. So even if we perhaps not always get the same look, we at least get the information. So we actually are, I'm usually talking about rune stones. The rune stones here in Sweden were created more than 1,000 years ago. We can still read them. We need to make sure that the digital information we create today is possible to read by the researchers 200 years away, maybe 2 years away, or 2,000 years away. There will happen things with the formats in 200 years, but we need to give them the best we can to be able to look at the information in the future. A long list of links, both to the eArchiving building block, DLSys, who are the maintainers of the specifications, GitHub, where the specifications have been published. We have a sample software portfolio. The validation is available through the GitHub repository for softwares. We have the long link to ISA Square and the validation. I did put in the National Archives of Sweden, who has an introduction to the Common Specifications, being in Swedish, of course. We have METS. We have the originating standards for the archival information. Standards are originating from our working group, CITS, which is part of the Society of American Archivists. So all the different specifications there, so that are used by the Archives Portal Europe, you can actually find the basic standards there. A link to premise, and then you also have the extra link to the survey. But as I said, it's only open for 2 more weeks. And with that, I'm going to lean over to the questions, and I think I have gotten some in the chat, and I think was someone going to read them for me?
Yes, the first question we have is it only for relational databases, or can it be also used for no SQL document or graph databases too?
CR is based upon the relational databases, so it's following the SQL standard. So I would say, I'm not sure about if the graph databases are following the SQL standard. No, SQL is not most certainly, in most cases, not following it, so it's for relational databases.
And then we had the really long question, which I believe you stated earlier was answered during your presentation. I don't see any more, sorry about this, any more questions in the chat. We'll give viewers a second to ask any of them. In the meantime, I will state that we have posted a satisfaction survey in the chat, so everyone have a chance to open that and answer that. It does help us provide better webinars, and we do take your comments into consideration.
I have a feeling that the long one is actually more a comment, that what you can have in a database is actually, you don't want to know what you can have in a database, sort of thing. Yeah, so it's, you have, I would say this is a database that contains a process of applications and everything, and you have everything in this database. So you need to be able to export different things from the database, and it's also possible that all these things that you send out to others are actually present in the database. And when you use CR and especially the tools for making the export, all those parts are part of the export. So you don't lose anything. So that's the most important part, that everything that you have in the database will be exported. You just need to make sure that you tick some boxes so you get the files where you expect them to end up.
Thank you for that explanation. And I think you were super clear, because I don't see any more questions coming in. Jamie, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, I'd just like to thank Karin for that superb presentation. It's always fantastic to hear you speak and talk about the chaos. But yes, thank you all for coming today. It's been a real pleasure hosting this event, and just to say a few words to remind you about the next webinar, which will be on the 10th of June, about the practical applications of digital archiving. But that's really all I have to say today. But thank you all.
And I see again, I keep checking the questions, and I don't see any more coming in. So I assume that this would be a wrap up. Thank you so much, Karin, and thank you so much, Jamie. And I guess I'll see all of you June 10th.
Thank you.